Dave, just for the beginning, you might just introduce yourself, what you've done in your life, and especially for fire service, and what's the actual status right now.
So I retired in June of 2019 after 37 years in the fire service. 6 of those as the fire chief of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. Specific to urban search and rescue, I've been involved in urban search and rescue since before it was a formal team. I currently still serve as one of the team leaders for Florida Task Force 1 and have been part of many of the significant responses for disasters locally here in the United States and across the globe.
Okay. What are your major experiences according to user calls?
USAR, the World Trade Center, the Haiti earthquake, the earthquake in Izmit, Turkey, the earthquake in Colombia, a lot of hurricanes, including Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. That kind of sums it up.
And on a local, in your local area, were there also any collapse scenes?
So, I was the incident commander for a 5-story parking garage under construction collapse, where we had 12 victims, and also the incident commander for the FIU pedestrian bridge collapse, where we had 6 victims.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess most of our listeners won't have no information about the user system in the States. So could you just roughly explain what the user system in the United States is exactly?
So in the United States, kind of starting at the top, you have 28 federal teams that are sponsored by local fire departments like mine, and they respond under FEMA for any national emergency in the United States. And then we have various, about not every state, but probably about 50 state use, not 50, 30 state USAR resources. Okay. And then we have regional USAR resources. We type our resources a little different than the UN. We use a typing system 1 through 4, 1 being an 80-person, what you would know as a heavy team that also has a CBRNE capability to work in a contaminated environment. A type 2 is exactly the same without the CBRNE. A type 3 would be half of a heavy team, very close to your medium teams. And then a type 4 is 24 people. So it's kind of a tiered approach here in the States.
Okay. Beside federal assets, especially Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, what kind of special units or special preparation for user calls do they have?
So Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, all of our firefighters are trained to the NFPA operational level for structural collapse. And then on top of that, every day on duty, we have 3 medium duty rescue squad type fire trucks that are technical rescue, staffed by 4 firefighters each. Then we have 1 heavy rescue staffed by 4 firefighters that are our technical search personnel. That heavy rescue also is partnered with a 60-ton rotating crane. And on top of all of that, 1 of the on-duty battalion chiefs, so we have 14 battalion chiefs, 1 of them is a technical rescue battalion chief. So if there's a technical rescue assignment, regardless of where it is, that chief responds. So that's a daily contingent that we have.
Great. So for the actual call, what information do we have about the actual scene in Surfside?
Well, I've been talking to the folks on the scene pretty frequently throughout the day. I know you've all seen it in the media, but it appears to be, for unknown reasons, it doesn't appear to be anything criminal. There was a shear collapse of a part of a apartment complex. 12, originally I got 13 stories, anywhere between 12 and 13 stories. The entire complex had 136 units. 72 of them were involved in the collapse. So basically half of it was involved in the collapse. It was a pancake, the typical pancake type collapse. Our units responded and did the removals of those that were not trapped on the rubble, those that are lightly trapped, and then those that were still in the uninvolved part of the building couldn't get out because all the stairwell collapsed with the structure. So we had to take those people out over our fire department ladders. So obviously that took quite a bit of time.
From your experience, do you expect any more live rescues in those big pancake rubble and down there?
Well, you always hope for it, that. But,
sure.
That type of collapse doesn't lend itself to large void spaces. My experience, maybe some of the upper layers may have some void spaces, but unfortunately those lower layers, just by the sheer weight and pressure, don't have a lot of space.
Okay. Just a word about Unified Command. Can you just explain what Unified Command is in a few words?
Unified Command is, one principal command cell that involves the subject matter experts for the various disciplines. As an example, the fire department is in charge of an incident like this, but we'll have a representative of the police department, the building department, the water department, all within the command post, handling their specific disciplines as a unified command.
Okay. So my final question is, how long do you think they will be on the scene? The Miami-Dade will be fire rescue services will be on the scene?
That's hard to tell. I would anticipate at a minimum the rescue operation to go a few days. And then the recovery will be responsible for the recovery. Police then will be in charge of the incident, but we would support the police. And, I got to be honest with you, I could see this, lasting a long time, because there's a good chance some of these missing people are going to have to be identified, through DNA and things like that.
Right. Okay. So Wiebke, Irakli, any other questions?
Sure, we got plenty.
Irakli, do you want to start?
I don't mind. Oh, ladies first.
Well, my question is, do you have kind of social media monitoring for all the speculations on Twitter and on Facebook? How do you handle that?
Yes, so the fire department has a public affairs section, and they are working also as very similar to a unified command. We have what we call a JIC, a Joint Information Center. And so the police public affairs, the city public affairs, the county and the fire department public affairs all work together in their messaging. The main message comes from the fire department. Whoever's in charge is the one that says, these are the numbers you report, this is the information you report, but they all work together. From the monitoring side, primarily police handles the monitoring of the social media that's happening outside of the incident.
Okay, then my second question would be, thank you. At first, how does the training take part in your fire department? How long does the training take for the special trained officers you spoke about?
So it all depends on the discipline. So the heavy task force, as you all are aware, has certain disciplines. So a rescue specialist, the person that's working in the actual breaching and breaking and shoring and all of that, needs to be a minimum of technical rescue, which involves 240 hours of training. They do vehicle training, vehicle training, confined space, trench rescue, machinery rescue, and high angle rescue. and then they take another, I think it's 120-hour structural collapse technician course. So it's upwards of about 360 hours of training just to get on the team. And then, you know, from our experience, we have a lot of experienced responders that have actually done this work in real environments. Other disciplines, the medical specialist, they take a 40-hour collapse medical training, but they have to be a minimum of a doctor or a paramedic. Hazardous materials, same thing. They have to be a technician at 160 hours, and then they would take an additional 40 hours of structural hazmat. So pretty much above a normal firefighter, figure 40 hours as a minimum additional training.
Okay, great. I would say because of the time, I would give Irakli 2 more questions, and then
Yes.
you have the next interview.
Sure.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Irakli.
All right, Chief. So this is more from a sort of a perspective of a USAR work now, and of course, there's a lot of let's say various aspects here. So I'd like to focus on search, and in that specific case here, how was search organized? So did you start off with biological, and then do you have your DELSARs or whatever in, or how is it structured?
Exactly. So what we have is what's taking place is they're gridding the collapse area so that they have a specified, a defined search area. Our typical thing is we'll run the live victim canines over the areas first. If they express any interest or anything like that, we then start trying to do a verification. We'll use the DELSAR or the search cam or just hailing. You know, they're working on a rescue right now where they were talking to the woman, so they were able to speak with her. So, but we always use 2 methods of confirmation. Just because the dog alerts, we won't start a rescue operation unless we can do a verification that there's a live victim there.
All right, and the second question would be, thanks for that.
Yep.
The second question is the rubble pile itself, there's still part of a building standing next to it, and it's kind of difficult to tell from the pictures, but how it's presumably quite close, and presumably you have like an overhang or overhanging concrete parts. So is any work on securing that or monitoring that? Or what do you do? How do you deal with that? Or do you not send anyone on the rubble pile?
No, we're working the rubble pile. As part of our task force, we have structural engineers that are trained in collapse rescue, and these structural engineers are on scene, and they're the ones that are making the call whether we go into an area, we don't go into an area, or we have to stabilize an area before we go in there. There are so many, because of the type of collapse that you see, there's so many what we call widow makers, you know, those pieces of concrete hanging off, that it's too time consuming to try to secure all of those back. So what they'll do, in my experience, would be if they have an active rescue or they have an active victim under one of these widow makers, then we'll take the time to secure that or remove that or something along those lines. We also use the total station engineer monitoring systems. So we'll set transoms up on the different sides of the building to monitor any movement of the building at all. And safety will evacuate the area if we have to. So it's you know, as you all know, I mean, it's a long, drawn out process to ensure the safety of the rescuers.
All right, well, appreciate it.
Sure.
There'll be about 20, 30 more questions, but we'll keep those to another time.
Yeah,
Thanks
well, later on. Well, that's for the official part. Thank you, Dave, for being so kind and answering all our questions, because I understood that you're very busy right now. So thank you again for having the time and making the interview.